It's me again, Family Man. I just want to go over a couple things about your air filter and why it's so important to foam filter spray it if you're putting it underwater. So if you look here, I use the Bel-Ray's foam filter oil. You see there, this is waterproof formula. So take that off. So you want to do, make sure also when you're dealing with your air box, when you're dealing with this filter, is make sure that you put that filter spray on, but don't oversaturate it. You just want to lightly coat it, just lightly, very lightly over the whole thing, and then squeeze it with your hands. Be prepared to wash your hands or wear gloves. I just wash my hands with gasoline and then wash them clean. Comes right off. But some people prefer to wear gloves. Make sure you do that, because as you're riding and it's raining, you're getting water in through your snorkels, or when you're splashing through massive puddles, water comes in through these snorkels, and sometimes it'll get in your box. And if you do get water in your box, you don't want it to go into the filter and then into the intake. So the filter, you want to make sure that's waterproofed. If you get it on there good enough and cover the whole surface without saturating it, and make sure that it's squished in real clean and thoroughly. Make sure you clean your air filter first. Thoroughly clean your air filter. I recommend soap and water, and then using your air hose a little bit for those who have them. Use your air and blow it out real good. For those who don't, squeeze it real good. Throw it up on somewhere where it's in the sun, it can dry real good. And then foam filter oil these things. Okay, make sure that your filter is well oiled, and that'll keep water out of your intake too. So that helps a lot when waterproofing these systems. Even just normal riding, if you don't go in the water, I recommend this too. I mean, I recommend everybody take care of their machine properly and thoroughly. Honda probably has an OEM product that works for their filters. I like the Bel-Ray's because it's waterproof, and it's, I've been using it for years. It's a good product. One can last a while. But if you're not riding in the water and you're just a normal rider, this is going to protect dirt from getting into your throttle body, in your intake or in your carburetors even. For you guys who have carburetors, I don't. This is going to collect the dirt and the dust. You can see as I'm riding, I get these little burrs off the top of the, see if I can show you that. I get these little hairs off of the top of the reeds that come in my intake, and it sucks it in and gets in here in my air box. I try to keep this thing clean and clean it out quite often. Sometimes I'll even, if I know I'm going to be in a heavily area with a lot of sand or a lot of reeds, that or even if I'm going in the thick brush where there's a lot of those puffy flowers that just poof off and you're gonna suck them in your intake, I'll even sometimes put a little bit of lubrication, maybe some oil, or some of this Bel-Ray's spray around the inside of my air box, so that it collects to everything around here instead of just collecting directly to the filter itself, and then thus starving my quad for air. Like it needs to get as much air as it can when you're riding, so it gives it its best performance. I also haven't adjusted my idle or anything like that. It idles underwater, no problem. Haven't had an issue with that. The only issue I've ever had with this thing is my own stupidity, playing around, doing flips off the quad or things like that out into the water, and I tilt it too far, or it tips up too high. One time me and my daughter were out and we went to roll it, and I shut the key off, and it just so happened to be in compression stroke, or I think it was exhaust stroke, and it let a bunch of water in the exhaust through the exhaust valve, and I hydrolocked. I pulled it out, pulled the plug out, pumped all the water out. In the process of doing that, I think I got a little bit of water up in my intake valve, just a little bit. So it took a little bit of time to get me to get it to fire up, but it cleaned itself out. I want to go in and clean my valves again one time eventually, and maybe lash them a little bit. I'll make a video on that if I do that anytime soon. Yeah, so take care of your air filter. It's very important to riding all the time, including underwater, or if you're not going underwater and you're in dusty, dirty areas. Even if you're not, just it's good to maintain your air filter and maintain a good air filter oil or lubrication that's sticky, that allows everything to stick to it instead of going inside past the air filter, because it's only going to protect so much. Dirt and particles will go through it. If you don't have some kind of sticky lubrication on there. Filter oil is most recommended because it doesn't affect the airflow. It sticks and it doesn't go into the intake. You obviously want to let it sit for a few minutes before you put it on. Don't recommend doing it directly, putting it on and taking a quick ride. I recommend letting it sit for about 15 to 20 minutes before you install, after applying. But yeah, that's another thing that I do to maintain my waterproofing system on my Honda, which, like I said, I don't have any issues with it, and it maintains good service to the Honda. So, make sure you don't silicone these boxes shut. You should be getting in here and cleaning your air filter every couple weeks, depending on how much you ride. I mean, if you're riding all the time, I recommend every couple days, especially if you got snorkels. You're sucking stuff into that air filter box as you're riding, particles and things like that you just don't see. And sometimes it's things we do see and we know it, but we don't notice the damage that it affects to our machines over a long-term period. So that's just something I recommend doing. Thank you guys, and I'll see you on the next one.